Two Merchants of Venice by Stephen M. Hunt. Act 1, Scene 1. Portia's bedroom in her palace. In nightgowns, Portia and Bassanio bask on the bed in the afterglow of passion. On a wheelchair, Portia's side of the bed rests a walking stick. The 3 caskets are nearby.
Oh, sweet Portia. Since I have your good leave to go, I will make haste.
He gets up while she edges to her side of the bed, then puts her feet gingerly on the floor.
But till I come again, no bed shall e'er be guilty of my stay, nor rest be reposed twixt us twain.
Forbear a while, Bassanio.
She reaches for the walking stick, rises, and moves carefully towards him as he dresses.
For something tells me, but it is not love. I would not lose you. I would detain you here some month or two.
She turns to rant at the 3 caskets.
Laws for the blood, devised by my father. My hot temper has long craved to o'erleap his cold decree. But alas the while, I am that which blind fortune avails to the unworthy by a play at dice.
With a silk scarf around his neck, he goes to her.
But methinks you said your father was ever virtuous and had but good inspirations at his death?
He could as easily teach 20 what were good to be done than be one of the 20 followers of a teacher.
He inspects the caskets.
I could teach you wherein I am contained, but then I am forsworn.
Portia, do a little wrong and teach me the means of our deliverance.
In choosing a husband, I will never be forsworn. But then you may miss me.
He returns to her, and she takes hold of his scarf.
Oh, these naughty times put bars between the owners and their rights.
She yanks the scarf off and tosses it aside.
Let fortune be in hell for it, not I.
They kiss, and he eases her gently back onto the bed. Blackout. Act 1, Scene 2. Antonio's residence. Darkness pierced by a single spot on Antonio sitting, wearing a shawl, a skull cap, and a Star of David from his neck. He sings a prayer from a Jewish book until startled by Sally and Sophie calling from out in the street.
Signor Antonio, Signor.
He jumps up, pulling off his shawl and cap as he runs off stage. Blackout. Act 1, Scene 3. Venetian Street. Enter Sally, Sophie, and Antonio with the cord of his Star of David protruding from under his clothes.
In sooth, I know not why I am so sad. And such a want-wit sadness makes of me that I have much ado
Notices and hurriedly stows the cord.
to know myself.
Your mind is tossing on the ocean.
Had I such ventures forth, the better part of my affection would be with my hopes abroad, and every object that might make me fear misfortune to my ventures out of doubt would make me sad.
My wind cooling my broth, but I should think of shallows and of flats, and see my wealthy Andrew decks in sand, veiling her high top lower than her ribs to kiss for burial. I know Antonio is sad to think upon his merchandise.
In truth, no. I thank my fortune for it. My ventures are not in one bottom trusted, nor to one place, nor is my whole estate upon the fortune of this present year. Therefore my merchandise makes me not sad.
Let us say then that you are sad because you are not married.
Believe me, I know not why I am sad.
Perhaps you are in love.
Fie.
Enter Bassanio, Lorenzo, and Gratiano.
Not in love neither, then.
Suddenly happy, Antonio rushes to hug Bassiano warmly, which both Sally and Sophie notice with interest.
I think he only loves the world for him.
Fie.
Antonio shakes hands with Lorenzo and Gratiano.
We leave you now with better company.
Antonio is peeved that Bassanio makes an eager beeline for Sophie, who falls into his arms.
I would have stayed till I had made you marry if worthier friends had not prevented me.
Sally takes Sophie by the hand to lead her away.
Good morrow, my good lords.
Good ladies both. When shall we
Embraces Sophie, kisses her neck.
laugh? Say when.
Sophie pulls back, feigning indifference.
You grow exceeding strange. Must it be so?
We'll make our leisures to attend on yours.
Sally exits with Sophie following, which brings relief to Antonio, but Bassanio chases and catches Sophie by the wrist. He leads her to a bench, sits, pops her on his knee, which she's happy with, particularly when he nuzzles her neck. Again, Antonio is put out.
My lord Bassanio, since you have found Antonio, we too will leave you, but at dinner time I pray you have in mind where we must meet.
I will not fail you.
Gratiano notices that Antonio is clearly aggrieved.
You look not well, Signor Antonio.
I hold the world,
Gratiano follows Antonio's fixed gaze on Bassanio and Sophie.
but as the world is, Gratiano.
Believe me, You are marvelously changed.
Antonio shrugs.
You have too much respect upon the world. They lose it that do buy it with much care.
The world is a stage, Gratiano, where every man must play a part.
Then let
Mine, a saddle.
me play the fool.
And let me play the...
With mirth and laughter let old wrinkles come, and let my liver rather heat with wine than my heart cool with mortifying groans. Why should a man whose blood is warm within sit like he's grandsire cut in alabaster, sleep when he wakes, and creep into the jaundice by being peevish? There are sort of men whose visages do cream and mantle like a standing pond,
Lorenzo goes to object.
and do a wilful stillness entertain with purpose to be dressed in an opinion of wisdom, gravity, profound conceit.
Lorenzo is about to respond.
As who should say, I am Sir Oracle, and when I ope my lips, let no dog bark. I'll tell thee more of this another time, but fish not with this melancholy bait, for this fool gudgeon this opinion.
I must be...
Come, good Lorenzo,
I must...
fare ye well a while. I'll end my exhortation after dinner.
I must be one of these same dumb wise men, for Gratiano never lets me speak.
Keep me company, but 2 years more thou shalt not know the sound of thine own tongue.
Very well.
Thanks, I faith and remember Antonio. Silence is only commendable in a neat's tongue dried, and a maid not vendable.
Piqued, Sophie jumps up, taking a swipe at Gratiano, which he sidesteps. Bastiano glares at Gratiano and hauls Sophie back onto his lap. Laughing, Gratiano exits, followed by Lorenzo, who's chastising him.
Gratiano speaks an infinite deal of nothing.
He is Sir Oracle. Let no dog bark.
Antonio is disturbed by Bastiano's kissing Sophie passionately.
So, what secret pilgrimage is it that you promised to tell me of?
'Tis not unknown to you, Antonio, by something showing of a more swelling port than my means would allow. I have...
Yes, you have disabled your estate.
In my school days, when I had lost one shaft, I shot his fellow of the self-same flight, the self-same way, with more advised watch to find the other fourth. And by adventuring both...
This preamble irritates Antonio.
I pray you, Bassanio, if it stand as you yourself still do within the eye of honor, be assured my purse, my person, my extremest means are all unlocked to your occasions.
I urge this childhood proof.
Bassanio, you have squandered your estate. Now, do but say to me what I should do, and I am pressed unto it.
Bassanio sees he better get the point.
In Belmont is a lady richly left, and...
Portia!
Bassanio nods. Antonio turns away disgruntled, and Sophie looks dejected. Bassanio whispers in her ear, and she smiles and hugs him.
Sometimes from Portia's eyes I did receive fair speechless messages.
Annoyed, Antonio won't look at Bassanio.
The wide world knows well of her worth, for the four winds blow in renowned suitors.
Renowned vultures have plagued her since her father died.
Verily, they are noble suitors, and Jasons who come in quest of her.
Antonio turns to Bassanio.
Out of doubt, Bassanio, you do her wrong. Do her sunny locks hang on her temples like the golden fleece? Is her seat of Belmont fabled Colchis?
I cannot tell. But still, from the four corners of the earth, princely suitors come to kiss this shrine, this mortal breathing saint.
Prick her flesh, does she not bleed?
Do but hear me, Antonio. The Cranian deserts and the windy wilds of wide Arabia are thoroughfares. Now the watery kingdom, whose ambitious head spits in the face of heaven, is no bar to stop the foreign spirits. But they come as o'er brook to see fair Portia.
Fair, at 80 years and none.
Flummoxed, Bassanio has no riposte.
You know me well, Bassanio, and herein spend but time to wind about my love with this circumstance to...
Bassanio shoves Sophie aside and stands to face Antonio.
My chief care is to come fairly off from the great debts I owe.
Aha!
Had I but the means to hold a rival place,
No.
But
All my fortunes are at sea.
your purse,
Neither have I money,
your person,
nor commodity to raise a present sum.
your extremest means...
Antonio glares stony-faced at Bassanio, whose head drops.
Oh, Antonio, My Antonio!
He turns away with his shoulders heaving. Antonio finds Bassanio's distress unbearable.
Bassanio. Bassanio.
Sighing, Antonio comforts Bassanio, dries his eyes, then hugs him tightly. From over Antonio's shoulder, Bassanio winks to Sophie, who smiles.
Let the world judge whether Bassanio had not once a lover.
Bassanio's smile lacks conviction. They disentangle.
Go forth. Try what my credit can in Venice do to furnish thee to Belmont, to fair Portia. Go presently inquire, and so will I, where money is, and I no questions make to have it of my trust or for my sake.
Overjoyed, Bassanio hugs Antonio, who rapidly disentangles himself and leaves. Bassanio rushes to Sophie, and they celebrate. Blackout. Act 1, Scene 4. Portia's bedroom. The caskets are still in place. Portia's wheelchair is upstaged. Conducting singers. Portia has her cane to hand.
Tell me where fancy is bred, in the heart or in the head, how begot, how nourished.
By my troth, bread, head, nourished.
Tell me where fancy is bred, in the heart or in the head, how begot, how nourished.
Oh, peace ho.
Singers exit immediately with their heads down as Nerissa enters. Portia takes up her cane.
Oh, Nerissa, my little body is weary of this great world.
Nerissa goes for the wheelchair, clueless of how foul-tempered Portia is.
You would be sweet, madam, if your miseries were in the same abundance as your good fortunes are.
Astounded, Portia can hardly believe that Nerissa has not a jot of empathy for her frustration and anger.
And yet, for aught, I see they are as sick that surfeit with too much that they starve with nothing. It is no mean happiness, therefore, to be seated in the mean.
Portia drops her head enraged.
Superfluity comes sooner by white hairs, but competency lives longer.
Good sentences, and well pronounced.
They would be better if well followed.
Portia raises her head, almost snarling, and her eyes are narrowed to mean slits.
If to do.
Portia stabs Nerissa violently in the stomach with her cane. Nerissa staggers back onto the wheelchair, where she sits doubled up, hugging her midriff, gasping for air.
If to do were as easy as to know what were good to do, chapels would be churches and poor men's cottages, princes' palaces. The good divine follows her own instruction.
Portia steps away, propped by her cane, and at a table pours a glass of water.
How now, Nerissa? Are you content?
Nerissa can barely breathe, let alone answer. Portia returns with her water to the wheelchair. As Nerissa groans, Portia taps the wheelchair with her cane to no response. Portia places the end of her cane on Nerissa's back and leans on it. Nerissa eases herself slowly up, then rolling forward sinks to her knees. Portia gets in front of Nerissa and with her cane lifts Nerissa's chin.
Are you content?
After a moment, Nerissa nods.
I hear thee not.
Nerissa draws a torturous breath.
I am content.
Portia takes her place in the wheelchair and sips the water.
These pleasantries are not in the fashion to choose me a husband. Oh me, the word choose.
Nerissa forces herself to speak over her pain while Portia is lost in her own sadness.
Your father's lottery of 3 chests, whereof who divines his meaning,
Never, never free to choose one, nor refuse one.
will no doubt never be,
My brief life, curbed by the will of my dead father.
will never be chosen by any rightly, but one who you shall rightly love.
I will do anything ere I yield myself to a death's head with a bone in his mouth.
Nerissa struggles to her feet and spots Bassanio's scarf on a chair. Unnoticed by Portia, Nerissa goes to the scarf.
If I live to be as old as Sibylla,
Nerissa takes up the scarf and studies it.
I will die as chaste as Diana, unless
Do you remember, lady, a young Venetian who was both a scholar and a soldier?
Bassanio. So was he called?
True, madam. He of all the men that ever my foolish eyes looked upon was most deserving of a fair lady.
Well, was he not accompanied by his kinsman, Graziano?
Indeed, a sprightly, tripping spirit.
The two women look at each other knowingly. Portia takes the scarf and holds it to her face tenderly.
Oh, love be moderate. Allay thy ecstasy, in measure reign your joy. Scant this excess. Oh, I feel too much.
Nerissa comforts Portia. Enter Stephanie.
How now? What news?
A forerunner come from the Prince of Morocco.
Portia grimaces, shudders, and goes to the caskets angrily. Nerissa follows nervously.
He brings word the prince will be here tonight.
To hazard my fortune. Assuredly not for my worthless self.
Portia flashes defiance at the caskets and strikes one with her cane.
All of his complexion will shrive me ere ever they wive me.
Nerissa takes hold of Portia's hand.
Bassanio, thy lord love, if thy will it will be.
Portia nods and glares hatred at the caskets. Blackout. Act 1, Scene 5. Shylock's residence. Enter Bassanio with Shylock.
30,000 ducats, well.
Aye, sir, for 3 months, for the which, as I told you, Antonio shall be bound.
Antonio is a good man.
Have you heard any imputation to the contrary?
His means are in supposition. He hath an argosy bound to Tripoli, another to the Indies, a third at Mexico, a fourth for England.
Indeed, but
Ships are but boards. There is the peril of waters, of winds and rocks.
may I know your answer?
The man is notwithstanding sufficient. I think I may take his bond.
Bassanio offers Shylock his hand.
Be assured you may.
Shylock snubs the offered hand.
I will be assured I may. May I speak with Antonio?
If it please you to dine with us.
I will buy with you, sell with you, talk with you, walk with you, but I will not eat with you, drink with you, or pray with you.
Enter Antonio and Bassanio calls to him.
Antonio! A royal merchant.
Bassanio rushes to Antonio, who embraces him long and affectionately, which disturbs Shylock.
How this Antonio fawns upon he who pleads in such low simplicity.
Antonio and Bassanio speak quietly together.
This same royal merchant is the Christian who feeds fat the ancient grudge he bears our sacred nation. He rails even where we merchants most do congregate, on our bargains and our well-known thrift.
Shylock, do you hear? Albeit I neither lend nor borrow by taking nor by giving of excess, yet to supply the right wants of my friend, I'll break a custom.
Intuitively, Shylock senses something about Antonio, but doesn't dare to guess what. So he delves.
Is it so? You neither lend nor borrow upon advantage?
Me? No, I never use it.
Doubtful, Shylock closes on Antonio and carefully peruses his face, which Antonio becomes uncomfortable with.
Why starest thou so?
You say you never use it.
Feeling threatened, Antonio pushes Shylock away, sending him sprawling, then stands over Shylock.
No, I never use it.
Concerned, Bassanio brushes past Antonio to help Shylock up, but Shylock waves him away.
May you stead me, Shylock?
Shylock stands, pushes past Bassanio to come nose to nose with Antonio.
When Jacob grazed the sheep of
Will you pleasure me?
Shylock ignores Bassanio to further interrogate Antonio.
this Jacob was the third possessor? Aye, he was the third.
What of him? Did he take interest?
Shylock stares hard at Antonio, then wonders if his imagination has got the better of him. He gives up and waves dismissively at Antonio.
No, not take interest, not, as you would say. Mark is what Jacob did when Laban...
Hear you this, Bassanio? The devil can cite scripture for his purpose. An evil soul, producing holy witness, is like a villain with a smiling cheek, a goodly apple rotten at the heart. Oh, what a goodly outside falsehood hath.
Signor Antonio, many a time and oft in the Rialto, you have rated me about my monies and my usances. You call me misbeliever, cutthroat dog, and spit upon my Jewish garbadine. Well then, it now appears you need my help. You say, Shylock, we would have monies. Should I not say, hath a dog money? Or, fair sir, on Wednesday you did void your room upon my hand. You foot me as you spurn a stranger cur, and for these courtesies I'll lend you monies?
I am as like to spit on and spurn thee again. If thou wilt lend this money, lend it not to thy friends, but lend it to thine enemy, who, if he break, thou mayst with better face exact the penalty.
Well, Shylock, shall we be beholden to you?
I'm debating of my present store, and by the near guess of my memory, I cannot raise up the gross of full 3,000 ducats.
Angry, Antonio strides to Shylock, spits in his face, grabs a shocked Bassanio by the arm, and exits with him. Blackout. Act 1, Scene 6. Portia's palace, a reception room. The 3 closed caskets are set downstage, each with its key in the lock. Nerissa sits upstage at a fully set chessboard. The singers enter, and annoyed Nerissa springs up, shoos them away, then retakes her seat. Hoe-faced, Portia enters, relying on her cane with the most genial Morocco and others.
Swear before you choose.
Swear. Swear to what, my most gracious and charming lady?
Swear that if you choose wrong, never to speak to lady afterward in way of marriage.
Oh, come now, my fair one. Mislike me not for my complexion. Bring me the fairest creature northward born, where Phoebus' fire scarce thaws the icicles, and let us make incision for your love, to prove whose blood is reddest, his or mine.
You trifle time as all you dreaming bridegrooms do. Swear to the oath previously by me rehearsed.
Oh, shame upon shame, that the estates, degrees, and offices are derived corruptly, not by merit and clear honour.
Scolded, Portia feels found out.
Peace, heathen infidel.
In law, what please so tainted and corrupt, but being seasoned with a gracious voice, obscures the show of cunning deceit.
Peace, I say.
The truth will out my love.
Repair thy wit, wretched alien devil, or it will fall to cureless ruin.
Let a plain man understand. You speak of my cureless rule.
Portia bangs her cane twice on the floor. She glares at smiling Morocco until 5 armed men enter, prompting Morocco to step back from Portia.
Swear, or be gone.
I swear that if I choose wrong, never to speak to lady after in way of marriage.
Portia turns away.
I tell thee, lady,
He watches Portia join Nerissa at the chess table. He and everyone else is surprised when Portia angrily swipes all the pieces from the board. Nerissa immediately recovers the pieces.
this aspect of mine hath feared the valiant, the best regarded virgins of our clime have loved it too. I would not change this hue except to steal your thoughts, my gentle queen.
Destiny bars me voluntary choosing.
Even for that I thank you. Good fortune, then, to make me blessed accursed among men.
He runs his fingers over the lead casket, noticing its engraving.
A golden mind stoops not to shows of dross, nor to blunt warnings neither. Who chooseth me must hazard all he hath. Must hazard all for lead?
The sound of Nerissa's chair scraping turns Morocco to look her way. She rises and heads towards him, reassured by the presence of the armed men.
It's like that lead contains her. To a damnation, to think so base a thought. It were too gross to rib her cerecloth in the obscure grave.
Nerissa turns the lock of the lead casket.
Aye, too base a thought.
Nerissa steps back as one of the armed men advances, and she gives him the key.
What says the silver with the virgin hue? Who chooseth me shall get as much as he deserves. Odds there, Morocco. Weigh thy value with an even hand. Shall I think in silver she's immured, being 10 times undervalued to tried gold? Or sinful thought.
He glimpses Nerissa as she steps forward.
Aye, sinful thought.
Nerissa turns the lock of the silver casket, passes the key to the same armed man, then resumes her seat at the chess table. She and Portia play chess, leaving Morocco flashing bewilderment to the armed man. Then he steps towards the gold casket.
Here perforce must I choose,
He glances to Portia, who's pretending to be engrossed in chess.
and thrive I as I may.
He opens the golden casket and sneers derision at its contents.
Alas, no likeness of the lady here. Just a written scroll.
He tosses the scroll aside contemptuously and exits. Portia yells her frustration and relief. Blackout. Act 1, Scene 7. Venetian Street. 2 revelers muttering in low voices and in exactly the same carnival masks enter from stage left and loiter there. After a moment, another reveler, also in the same mask, enters hurriedly from stage right and calls to the other 2.
He comes.
Is it truly he?
Only one devil comes in the form of a Jew.
Shylock enters stage right, striding past the lone reveler. One of the 2 across stage takes a step forward and calls Shylock.
Shylock, we would be friends with you.
Shylock is immediately wary and looks behind himself to the reveler he passed, then turns again to the other 2.
Or would you spurn our love also?
Cursed be my nation when I am humbled by Hagar's offspring.
Aware of the first reveler approaching from behind, Shylock spins around and floors him with a single punch. Masked Reveler 2 charges at Shylock, and after a swift exchange of blows, Shylock floors him too. Shylock glares at the third reveler, who exits stage left running. Shylock turns back the way he came to hurriedly exit stage right. Blackout. Act 1, Scene 8. Antonio's residence. Same. Darkness with a single spot on Antonio, sitting, wearing a shawl, a skull cap, and a Star of David from his neck. He reads from a Jewish book, then looks up from it, deeply troubled. He stands and, discarding the book, paces around.
On the Christian Rialto, Shylock is known for the devil who comes in the likeness of a Jew. They laugh at his losses, mock his gains, thwart his bargains, cool his friends, and heat his enemies. What is his humility? He overstares the sternest eye that looks, outbraves the heart most daring on the earth, and mocks the lion that roars for prey. There is more difference between jet and ivory, between snow and fire, than my weak flesh and his. Yet may not a throw of dice turn by fortune from the weaker flesh? Aye, from this weaker flesh of mine. Many a time and oft on the Rialto have I not bent low in a bondsman key, and adopted whispering humbleness for Christian love. The wide world knows not why I am sad. The very song of my confession is, oh, sacred nation, I live upon a rack, and myself do turn the wheel.
He sobs. Blackout. Act 1, Scene 9. Shylock's residence. Shylock sits at a desk, staring at a bag of money, which after a while he takes up and ponders.
Lancelot! Jessica!
Putting down the money, he takes up paper and begins to write. After a moment, enter Lancelot, who waits while Shylock writes. After a further moment, enter Jessica, and Lancelot beams at her.
What is your will?
My affairs call me forth.
He finishes writing, seals the document, and gives it to Lancelot.
Sirrah, deliver you this to my countryman Tubal.
I shall, sir.
As he exits, Lancelot whispers to Jessica, who laughs.
What says the fool?
Just farewell, mistress. Nothing else.
You are too familiar. He is but a servant.
Yes, father.
There are my keys. Look to my house, my girl.
I shall.
Shylock kisses her forehead and exits. She looks after him, oozing derision. Blackout. Act 1, Scene 10. On the Rialto, Antonio and Bassanio bemoan their bad luck.
Can it truly be that what my credit can do is nothing?
Glum, Bassanio shrugs.
Nay, but take heart, Bassanio, as I...
Enter Shylock. Antonio sees him and immediately leads Bassanio away.
Good morrow, my good lords. Good morrow.
They stop. Bassanio looks with pleading eyes to Antonio, who reluctantly addresses Shylock.
Would you aught with us?
I have monies. Tubal, a rich Hebrew of my tribe, has furnished me.
Antonio and Bassanio are taken aback.
Oh, forget the shames you have stained me with. Supply your present wants, and take no doit of usance for my monies.
Bassanio is delighted, but Antonio is cautious.
You offer us money? Gratis?
Aye, as you would say, son's interest. To buy your favor, I extend this friendship.
Antonio and Bassanio are speechless.
If you will take it, so. If not...
Shylock shrugs and turns away.
Wait! We are beholden to you, Shylock.
Shylock extends his hand, which Antonio shakes. Elated, Bassanio shakes Shylock's hand.
'Tis well. Go with me to a notary, seal me there your single bond, and, in a merry sport, if you repay me not on such a day, in such a place, such sum or sums as are expressed in the condition, let the forfeit be nominated for an equal pound of your fair flesh, to be cut off and taken in what part of your body pleaseth me.
Shylock chuckles, but Antonio is thrown.
This is kind I offer.
Unsure what to make of it, Antonio turns to Bassanio.
This were kindness.
Concerned, Antonio hesitates. Bassanio steps forward and hugs Antonio. The way they look at each other raises Shylock's eyebrow.
Content. In faith, I'll seal to such a bond, and say there is much kindness in the Jew.
Bassanio nods enthusiastically.
Meet me forthwith at the notary's. Give him direction for this merry bond, and I will fetch the ducat straight. And for my love, I pray you, wrong me not.
Exit Shylock while Antonio has second thoughts. He flashes concern to an overjoyed Bassanio. Antonio tries to reassure himself.
In this, can there be any dismay? No, my ships must surely come home a month before the day.
Blackout. Act 1, Scene 11. Venetian Street. Enter Lancelot.
Oh, conscience, the fiend is at mine elbow and tempts me, saying, use your legs, good Lancelot. Take the start and run from your Jew master. Fiend, you counsel well, but you are a heartless fiend to bid me run from Jessica, a beautiful pagan, a soul most sweet. Would she flee with me from the Jew?
Enter blind old Gobbo with a basket. He hears Lancelot.
Aye, fiend, you give the better counsel, and so my heels are at your command.
I pray you, sir, which is the way to Master Jew's?
My God, son, he is my long-lost father. Give me your blessings. I am Lancelot, your boy.
Oh, I cannot think you are my son, who I hope lodges still with his Master Jew.
Father, I am sure Marjorie, your wife, is my mother.
Lancelot, mine own flesh and blood.
They embrace warmly.
It is a wise father who knows his own child.
Oh, God be thanked and well to live. How dost thou and thy master agree?
Well, I have set up my rest to run away.
But I have brought him a present.
Give your present to Master Bassanio, who suddenly gives rare new liveries.
Enter Bassanio.
Oh, rare fortune! Here is the man. To him, father.
God bless your worship.
Gramercy, wouldst thou aught with me?
Oh, here's my son, sir, a poor boy.
Not a poor boy, sir, but the rich Jew's man, as my father shall fruitify.
He hath a great infection, sir, as one would say, to serve.
To be brief, the very truth is...
Here is a dish of doves for your worship, and my suit
is impertinent to myself, as your worship shall know
by his great infection.
Oh, one speak for both. What would you?
Serve you, sir.
That is the very defect of the matter, sir.
You would leave a rich Jew's service to become the follower of so poor a gentleman?
Sir, with all my heart.
Then, subject to Shylock's preferment, you have obtained your suit.
Lancelot celebrates with old Gobbo. Enter Gratiano.
Signor Bassanio,
Gratiano.
Come, father.
Exit Lancelot and old Gobbo.
I have a suit to you. I must go with you to Belmont.
Appalled by the idea, Bassanio turns away.
You would deny me?
Thou art too wild, too rude, and
Signor Bassanio.
too bold a voice.
But hear me.
Where thou art known, they know thee for...
Signor, if I do not put on a sober habit, talk with respect, swear but now and then.
Through thy wild behavior, Gratiano, I may be misconstrued and lose my hopes.
Gratiano produces a purse of coins which catches Bassanio's eye.
If I do not wear prayer books in my pocket, look demurely and...
Bassanio takes the money.
Pray thee, take pains to allay with some cold drops of modesty thy skipping spirit.
I do not. Never trust me more?
Well, we shall see your bearing.
No. Good friend, you shall not gauge me by our revels tonight.
Farewell, I have some business.
As Bassanio exits counting the money, Gratiano calls after him.
We will visit you at supper time.
Blackout, Act 1, Scene 12. Shylock's residence. Shylock enters with Lancelot.
Indeed, I have preferred thee to your new master. I assured him your kindness.
Lancelot bristles with pleasure.
I told him not that you are a huge feeder, snails slow in profit, sleep by day more than the wildcat, forever rend out apparel and feast like a ravenous wolf.
Lancelot looks to the heavens, puffing out his cheeks.
I intend you will advance Bassanio's efforts to waste his borrowed purse.
I heartily thank your worship.
Farewell.
Exit Shylock at one door and enter Jessica at another.
Oh, Lancelot, I am indeed sorry thou wilt leave my father so.
Mistress, look out at window for all this. There will come a Christian by will be worth a Jew as I.
Jessica has no idea what he means, so Lancelot gestures to himself, then bows, smiling.
Thou?
I must needs tell you all. You are placed in my constant soul. We will steal away together by tonight's full moon.
Oh, Lancelot, how I shall miss thy merry japes. Here's a ducat for thee.
He looks agog at the coin in his hand.
Soon at supper shalt thou see Lorenzo. Give him this, but do it secretly.
He takes and stares at the letter. She sees he's upset.
He meant no merry jape, but...
Lost in sadness, he could do no more than look at her.
Oh, sweet Lancelot, I am sorry for thee. I have always delighted that thou, a merry devil, didst rob our house of hell of its tediousness, but...
No more, I pray thee. I must forbid foolish drops to exhibit my tongue and drown my manly spirit. Adieu.
Exit Lancelot.
Though I am of my father's blood, I am not of his manners. Oh, Lorenzo, if thou keep promise, I shall end this strife, become a Christian and thy loving wife. Farewell, Shylock. And if my fortune be not crossed, I have a father, you a daughter lost.
Blackout. Act 1, Scene 13. Venetian Street. From off rises the swelling sound of noisy, excited revelers. They enter, all wearing exactly the same carnival masks we saw previously. Embedded among the revelers are Graziano, Lorenzo, Sally, and Sophie partying. The four remove their masks and have to shout their lines to be heard over the revelers.
We will slink away in supper time, prepare for the masque at my lodging, and return all in an hour.
Enter Lancelot stage left as the revelers' gaiety continues.
Friend Lancelot, what news?
Sullen and crossing the stage, Lancelot slaps Jessica's letter on Lorenzo's chest. It flutters down. Without breaking step, Lancelot exits stage right. Everyone is taken aback.
Friend Lancelot?
Lorenzo is far more interested in the letter, which he eagerly scoops up.
I know the hand.
Love news in faith.
Lorenzo reads, then looks up, beaming.
I am provided of a torchbearer.
They're all excited for him.
Meet me and Gratiano at Shylock's lodgings some hour hence.
'Tis good we do so.
Exit Sally and Sophie.
If ere the Jew her father come to heaven, it will be for his gentle daughter's sake.
Blackout. Act 1, Scene 14, outside Shylock's residence. Enter noisy maskers with Graziano and Sally embedded in their number.
This is the penthouse under which Lorenzo desired us to make stand.
His hour is almost past.
Who rises from a feast with that keen appetite that he sits down?
Enter Lorenzo in mask with a torch.
Here dwells my father Jew. Ho! Who's within?
Who are you?
He takes off his mask.
Lorenzo, and thy love.
Enter Jessica above.
Lorenzo, my love indeed. I am glad that night cloaks me, for Cupid himself would blush to see me thus transformed into a Christian.
Descend! You must be my torchbearer.
What, must I hold a candle to my shame?
Come at once, we have stayed for the great feast.
I will gild myself with more ducats and be with you straight.
Exit above.
Now, by my hood, a Gentile and no Jew.
Be shrew, but I love her heartily, for she is wise, fair, and true.
Enter Jessica below. She presents Lorenzo with a casket of jewels, which he displays to everyone's amazement.
On, gentlemen, away!
Exit maskers, Lorenzo, Jessica, Sally, and with Graziano straggling, enter Antonio.
Fie, fie, Gratiano. I have sent 20 out to seek for you.
I am glad on't.
The wind is come about. Bassanio goes suddenly aboard.
I desire no more delight than to be under sail and gone tonight.
Antonio is perplexed, so Graziano closes on him, checks that no one is nearby, and explains.
Bassanio means to solemnize the bargain of his faith with Portia. Even at that time, I may be married too.
Antonio is taken aback. Graziano slaps him on the back, and they exit. Blackout. Act 1, Scene 15. Portia's palace, a reception room. Enter Nerissa, who makes for the caskets, and each again is closed with their keys inserted. She swaps the contents of the lead casket for the contents of the gold casket. Enter the Prince of Aragon with 3 servants.
Behold, there stand the caskets, noble prince.
Aragon strolls over to inspect them.
I am enjoined by oath to observe 3 things. First, never to unfold to anyone which casket 'twas I chose.
One of the servants approaches Nerissa, offering her a bag of money, which she's just a little too shocked by and declines.
Next, if I fail of the right casket, never in my life to woo this lady in way of marriage.
A second servant joins the first and presents Nerissa with more money. 2 offered bags are clearly more tempting, but even so, she declines.
Lastly, if I do fail in fortune of my choice, immediately to leave and be gone.
A third servant presents Nerissa with more money.
To these injunctions all must swear.
Nerissa eagerly snatches up the 3 bribes and exits hurriedly by one door, while at another Portia enters, propped by her cane. She is bored and entirely detached from the ritual.
If you choose that wherein I am contained, straight shall our nuptial rites be solemnized.
Aragon paces before the caskets, yet makes no effort to consider them. He shoots an anxious glance to the door Nerissa left by.
Too long a pause for that which you find there.
Flustered, Aragon says the first thing he thinks of to conceal his rising anxiety over Nerissa's absence.
I am enjoined by oath
Aragon ambles to the door Nerissa used.
to observe 3 things.
He exits, falls silent, which prompts Portia to flash perplexity to Aragon's servants. He then speaks from off.
First, never to unfold to anyone which casket 'twas I chose.
He reappears, forcing a smile.
Next, if I fail of the right casket,
Nerissa appears from the door Portia used, and Aragon smiles at her through clenched teeth.
still more fool I shall appear by the time I linger here.
Nerissa speeds to Aragon. He turns to look at the gold chest, then glances to Nerissa, who, with her back to the others, grimaces. Aragon waves dismissively at the gold casket.
The fool multitude choose by show. I will not choose what many men desire.
Nerissa locks the casket, and they move on to the silver one. Again, Nerissa grimaces, so Aragon brushes past her to the lead casket, which he addresses as Nerissa locks the silver casket.
Thy paleness moves me more than eloquence, and here choose I. Joy be the consequence.
He opens the lead casket, sees the death's head with a scroll, and stifles his fury.
How much unlike my hopes and
He
deservings.
glares daggers at Nerissa, who smiles nervously. His eyes ablaze, Aragon grabs Nerissa by the throat and squeezes. Completely overpowered, Nerissa drops to her knees, choking. Portia bangs the floor with her cane, and the 5 armed men enter from different points, draw their swords, and close on Aragon. He instantly releases Nerissa, who falls to the floor, gasping. He addresses Portia as the armed men escort him away.
Sweet lady, adieu. I'll keep my oath patiently to bear my wrath.
Begone, you are sped.
Aragon, his servants, and the armed men exit.
Thus like a candle have I singed yet another moth.
Enter Stephanie.
My lady,
What would you?
madam, there is alighted at your gate a young Venetian, one that comes before to signify the approaching of his lord.
Portia fails to stifle rising excitement.
Come, Nerissa, for I long to see quick Cupid's post that comes so mannerly.
Portia exits, leaving Nerissa recovering on the floor. Blackout. Act 1, Scene 16. Venetian Street. Enter Sophie, stage left, and Sally, stage right.
What news on the Rialto?
Antonio hath a ship of rich lading, wrecked on the narrow Goodwin sands.
God help Antonio. But soft, let me say amen betimes, lest the devil cross my prayer.
Enter Shylock.
For here he comes in the likeness of a Jew. How now, Shylock? What news among the merchants?
You knew of my daughter's flight.
I knew, but the tailor that made the wings, she flew withal.
It is the complexion of them all to lead the damned.
Aye, and she is damned for it.
That's certain, if the devil may be her judge.
Would any stock of Barnabas had been her husband rather than a Christian, my own flesh and blood to rebel?
Out upon it, old carrion. Rebels it at these years?
I say my daughter is my flesh and my blood.
But tell us, do you hear whether Antonio had been lost at sea or no?
There I have another bad match. A bankrupt, a prodigal, who dare scarce show his head on the Rialto. A beggar that was used to come so smug upon the mart. Let him look to his bond.
Why, I am sure if he forfeit, thou wilt not take his flesh. What's that good for?
To bait fish withal. If it will feed nothing else, it will feed my revenge. He hath disgraced me and hindered me 500,000, and his reason, I am a Jew. Hath not a Jew eyes? Hath not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means as a Christian is? If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. The villainy you teach me, I will execute, and it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction.
Enter Leonora.
Friends, my master Antonio is at his house and desires to speak with you both. We have been up and down to seek him.
Enter Tubal.
Here comes another of the tribe. A third cannot be matched unless the devil himself turn Jew.
Exit Sophie, Sally, and Leonora.
How now, Tubal? What news from Genoa? Hast thou found my daughter?
I often came here when I did hear of her, but cannot find her.
A diamond gone cost me 2,000 ducats in Frankfurt. The curse never fell upon our nation till now.
Tubal hears this as a distasteful blasphemy. Shylock sees that, so changes tack.
I never felt it till now.
Tubal accepts this with a shrug.
2,000 ducats in that, and other precious jewels. I would my daughter were dead at my foot, and the jewels in her ear.
Tubal is repulsed.
Would she were hearsed at my foot, and the ducats in her coffin.
Fie, fie, Shylock, fie!
Well, no news of them. and I know not what's spent in the search. The thief gone with so much, and so much to find the thief, and no revenge.
Peace, Shylock. Other men have ill luck too.
Other men?
Antonio, as I heard in Genoa.
What? Ill luck?
He hath an argosy cast away, coming from Tripoli.
Well, I thank God. Is it true, Tubal? Is it true?
I spoke with sailors that escaped the wreck.
Oh, I thank thee, good Tubal. Good news, good news. And what else have you heard in Genoa?
Tubal turns away, reluctant to say more.
Tubal?
One night, your daughter spent in Genoa 80 ducats.
I shall never see my gold again. 80 ducats at a sitting? 80 ducats?
There came divers of Antonio's creditors in my company to Venice that swear he cannot choose but break.
Oh, I'm very glad of it.
One of them showed me a ring that he had of your daughter for a monkey.
Out upon her! It was my turquoise. I had it of Leo when I was a bachelor. I would not have given it for the wilderness of monkeys.
But Antonio is certainly undone.
No, nay, that's true. That's very true. Go, Tubal, fee me an officer. I will have the heart of him if he forfeit. For were he out of Venice, I can make what merchandise I will. Go, Tubal, and meet me at our synagogue. Go, good Tubal, at our synagogue, Tubal.
Exeunt severally. Blackout. Act 1, Scene 17. Portia's palace reception room. Nerissa enters, pushing Portia in her wheelchair with her cane on her knees. They're followed by Bassanio, Graziano, and others. The 3 caskets are set up.
Let me choose, for I am rat even to the uttermost.
Upon the rack, Bassanio. Then confess what treason there is mingled with your love.
No treason, believe me. There may as well be amity and life as treason and my love.
Aye, but I pray you speak upon the rack, where men enforced do speak anything.
She waits in vain for his further response, so prompts him again.
What treason is mingled with your love?
He smiles at her, but sees she's unsettled.
Sweet Portia, let me to my fortune in the caskets.
Away then. I am locked in one of them. If you do love me, you will find me out. Nerissa and the rest, stand all aloof. Now, let the music sound.
Enter singers with mandolin player and mandolin player.
While he chooses.
Music!
Then, if he lose, he makes a swan-like end, fading in melodic harmony.
Graziano isn't convinced. The music plays and the singers sing while Bassanio listens attentively.
Tell me where fancy is bred, or in the heart or in the head. How beget, how nourished. Tell me where fancy is bred.
Bassanio connects each line's last syllable with lead.
And so reply to us, tell of the meaning that draws us poor mortals like moths to a flame, engendering deep in the eyes with gazing fed and fancy lies. A restless soul smiles and dies. A restless soul smiles and dies.
He looks to the gold casket.
The outward shows belease themselves. Ornament is but the guiled shore of a most dangerous sea, and cunning times put on seeming truth to entrap. But I'll not jump with common spirits, and so rank me with the barbarous multitudes. Therefore, thou gaudy gold, I will none of thee, nor none of thee either, thou pale and common drudge between man and man.
He opens the lead casket and is delighted to find a miniature of Portia.
Fair Portia's counterfeit! What demigod hath come so near creation? Here's a scroll. Since this fortune falls to you, be content and seek no new. If you be well pleased with this, and hold thy fortune for your bliss, turn you where your lady is, and claim her with a loving kiss.
Nerissa wheels Portia to Bassanio.
For myself alone, I would not be ambitious in my wish to wish myself much better.
Portia raises, aided by her cane.
You see me, Lord Bassanio, where I stand, such as I am. Yet for you I would be treble 20 times myself, 1,000 times more fair.
They kiss to light applause.
But the full sum of me is an unlessoned girl, yet not yet so old that she cannot learn. Her gentle spirit commits itself to yours, to be directed.
Bassanio takes her and kisses her passionately while uncomfortable the others look away.
Myself and what is mine to you and yours I give them with this ring, which when you part from, lose, or give away. Let it presage the ruin of your love, and be my vantage to exclaim on.
She puts the ring on his finger.
When this ring parts from this finger, then parts life from hence. Oh, then be bold to say Bassanio is dead.
My lord and lady, we have stood gladly by and seen your wishes prosper. It is now our time.
Nerissa approaches Gratiano, who takes her hand and kisses the back of it, surprising everyone.
My eyes, my lord, can look as swift as yours. When you saw this, the mistress, I beheld the maid. With oaths of love, at last, if promise last, I got a promise of this fair one here to have her love, provided that your fortune achieved her mistress.
Is this true, Nerissa?
Madam, it is. So you stand pleased with all.
Nerissa produces a ring which she places on Gratiano's finger, at which he's deeply moved.
Our feast shall be much honored in your marriage.
We'll play with them the first boy for 1,000.
Nerissa elbows Gratiano's ribs, but too late. Portia has taken offense, so Nerissa immediately placates her.
No, madam. We shall ne'er win at that sport.
Enter Lorenzo, Jessica, and Sally.
But who comes here? Lorenzo and his infidel, and my old friend Sally.
Lorenzo and Sally, welcome hither. By your leave, bid my friends and countrymen welcome, sweet Portia.
So I do, my lord. They are entirely welcome.
Signor Antonio commends him to you.
She gives Bassanio a letter.
Ere I ope this letter, I pray you tell me how my good friend doth.
Not sick, my lord, unless it be in mind, nor well, unless in mind. His letter there will show you his estate.
I know he will be glad of our success. We are the Jasons. We have won the...
Bassanio kicks Gratiano into pained silence, then opens the letter and reads.
I would you had won what he hath lost.
Portia sees that Bassanio's letter bears bad news, so he goes to him.
With leave, Bassanio. I am half yourself, and I must freely have the half of anything this St. Peter brings to you.
Here is a letter, lady. The paper as the body of my friend, and every word in it a gaping wound issuing life blood. But is it true, Sally? Hath all his ventures failed? What, not one hit?
Not one, my lord. Besides, it should appear that he had the present money to discharge the Jew, he would not take it. Never did I know a creature that did bear the shape of a man so keen and greedy to confound a man. He plies the Duke at morning and at night, and doth impeach the freedom of the state if he deny him justice. 20 merchants, the Duke himself, and the magnificos of greatest port have all persuaded with him, but none can drive him from his bond.
When I was with him, I have heard him swear to Tubal and Cush, his countrymen, that he would rather have Antonio's flesh than 20 times the value of the sum that he did owe him. And I know, my lord, if law, authority, and power deny not, it will go hard with poor Antonio.
The good Antonio is thus in trouble.
The dearest friend to me, the kindest man.
What sum owes he the Jew?
3,000 ducats.
What? No more? Deface the bond and pay him 6,000.
6,000?
Double 6,000, and then treble that.
Bassanio is at a complete loss. Portia realizes that this is because he has no money. She whispers to Nerissa, who nods and exits.
Let me hear the letter of Antonio.
Sweet Bassanio, my ships have all miscarried. My bond to the Jew is forfeit. It is impossible I should live.
You shall have gold, Bassanio.
Portia thumps her cane on the floor. Enter Nerissa and an armed man carrying a chest of gold escorted by 2 other armed men.
Here, pay the petty debt 20 times over.
Bassanio inspects the money spellbound.
Since you are dear bought, I will love you dear. Come to church and call me wife.
Blackout. Intermission. Act 2, Scene 1. Venetian Street. Enter Sophie, Antonio, and Jailer.
Shylock seeks my life. His reason well I know. I oft delivered from his forfeiture many that sought my help.
I am sure the Duke will never grant Shylock's forfeiture to hold.
The Duke cannot deny the course of law for the commodity that strangers have with us in Venice. Therefore go. These griefs and losses have so baited me that I shall hardly spare a pound of flesh tomorrow to my bloody creditor. Well, jailer, on. Pray God, Bassanio, come and see me pay his debt. Then I care not.
Enter Shylock.
I do wonder, thou naughty jailer.
Shylock, I pray thee.
that thou art so fond to come abroad with him at his request.
Shylock, hear me for just a...
Jailer, look at him, the fool that lent out money gratis.
Promise me life, and I'll confess the truth.
He called me dog,
The truth of how my weaker flesh...
even before he had a cause.
Many a time, and oft on the Rialto,
Now, let him beware.
hath bent low in a bondsman's key.
Let him beware of my fangs.
I pray thee, Shylock, but hear me speak.
Should I hear and so made a soft dull-eyed fool to shake the head, relent and sigh and yield to Christian intercessors? No, thy naughty jailer, I'll have no speaking.
Furious, Shylock spins round to come nose to nose with Antonio.
I will have my bond.
Calm, Shylock turns to the jailer.
The Duke shall grant me justice. Take him hence, good jailer, I pray thee.
Exit Antonio, Sophie, and jailer.
Aye, the Duke will grant me justice. Justice.
Two men, each wearing the mask of the revelers, enter stage left and stare at Shylock. He takes several steps from them as another 3 masked men enter stage right. After a few tense moments, all the masked men attack Shylock. Blackout. Act 2, Scene 2. Portia's palace reception room. At the feet of 2 armed men are the smashed remains of the 3 caskets. Their stands and contents. Enter Portia and Nerissa. Portia sifts the shattered material with deep loathing.
I never did repent me of doing good, nor shall I now. Burn it all.
The men bow, gather up the debris, and exit as Lorenzo, Jessica, and Stephanie enter.
Lorenzo, I commit into your hands the husbandry and manage of my house. I do desire you not to deny this imposition.
Madam, with all my heart.
My people do already know my mind and will acknowledge you and Jessica in place of Lord Bassanio and myself. So fare you well till we shall meet again.
Fair thoughts and happy hours attend on you.
I wish your ladyship all heart's content.
Exit Lorenzo and Jessica.
Now, Stephanie, render this letter to Dr. Bellario of Padua. Bring what notes and garments he doth give, with all imagined speed unto the common ferry which trades to Venice.
Madam, I go with all convenient speed.
Exit Stephanie.
Nerissa, I have work in hand. We will see our husbands in such a habit that they will think we are accomplished with that we lack.
Why? Shall we turn to men?
I'll tell you my whole device in my coach. Therefore, haste away. We must measure 20 miles today.
Exit. Blackout. Act 2, Scene 3. Portia's palace reception room. Enter Lancelot and Jessica.
Yes, truly, for, look you, the sins of the father are to be laid upon the children. Therefore I promise you, I fear you. I was always playing with you, and so now I speak my agitation of the matter. Be o' good cheer, for truly you are damned. There is but one hope in it that can do you any good, and that is but a kind bastard hope, neither.
Lancelot snatches Jessica's translucent shawl, and their next exchanges are intermingled with a merry game of her trying but failing to snatch it back.
And what hope is that, I pray thee?
Mary, you may partly hope that your father got you not, that you are not the Jew's daughter.
That were a kind of bastard hope indeed. So the sins of my mother should be visited upon me.
Truly then, I fear you are damned both by father and mother. Thus when I shun Scylla, your father, I fall into Charybdis, your mother. Well, you are gone both ways.
They don't notice Lorenzo enter and watches them uneasily.
I shall be saved. My husband hath made me a Christian.
The more to blame he. This making of Christians will raise the price of hogs.
This has Jessica in stitches, and she rests her head good-naturedly on Lancelot's chest, who hoists her scarf so it lowers on them both.
If we grow all to be pork eaters, we shall not shortly have a rasher of the coals for money.
Again, Jessica laughs. Lancelot takes hold of her shoulders and looks deep into her eyes. Lorenzo steps forward to yank the scarf rudely from them.
I shall grow jealous of you, Lancelot, if you thus get my wife into corners.
Jessica is offended by Lorenzo's implied mistrust of her.
Lancelot tells me flatly that you are no good member of the Commonwealth in converting Jews to Christians.
I shall answer that better to the Commonwealth than the Moor being with child by you, Lancelot. It is much that the Moor should be more than reason, but if she be less than an honest woman, she is indeed more than I took her for. How every fool can play upon the word. The best grace of wit will shortly turn into silence, and discourse grow commendable in none only but parrots. Go in, sirrah, bid them prepare for dinner. That is done, sir. They have all stomachs. Then bid them prepare dinner. That is done, sir, only cover is the word. Will you cover, then, sir? Not so, sir, neither. I know my duty. I pray thee, go to thy fellows, bid them cover the table, serve in the meat, and we will come in to dinner. The table shall be served, the meat shall be covered, and dinner will be as humorous and conceits shall govern.
Unflinching of Lorenzo's glare, Lancelot returns it until he winks at Jessica and slowly exits.
Many a fool garnished like him for a tricksy word would defy every matter.
He sees Jessica is unhappy with him, so he tries to soften the mood.
And now, good sweet, say thy opinion. How dost thou like the Lord Bassanio's wife?
Having such a blessing in this lady, he finds the joys of heaven here on earth. Ask my opinion too of that.
I will none. First, let us go to dinner.
Nay, let me praise you while I have a stomach.
No, let it serve for table talk. Then, whosoever thou speakest, amongst other things, I shall digest it.
Well, I'll set you for.
Exeunt. Blackout. Act 2, Scene 4. The Duke's court, where Antonio, Bassanio, Graziano, Sophie, Sally, a jailer, and a good number of seated observers await the start of the trial. Enter the Duke.
What, is Antonio here?
Ready, so please your grace.
The Duke takes Antonio to one side so they can whisper together.
I am sorry for thee. Thou art come to answer a stony adversary, an inhuman wretch, incapable of pity, void and empty from any dram of mercy.
I have heard your grace hath ta'en great pains to qualify his rigorous course, but he stands obdurate. I do oppose my patience to his fury, and am armed to suffer with the quietness of spirit, the very tyranny and range of his.
What man? Courage yet!
Courage! No lawful means can carry me out of his envy's reach.
The vain fool abjures lawful means by daring to represent himself. We have him on the hip, Antonio. On the hip.
Antonio isn't convinced.
Moreover, I am incapable of presiding just to let his kind hold sway in my court.
Antonio nods with a half smile. They separate and the Duke addresses the court.
Go on and call the Jew into the court.
He comes, my lord.
Enter Shylock, and many gasp at the cuts and bruises on his face while the Duke is unimpressed.
Shylock, the world thinks, and I think so too, that thou but leadst this fashion of malice before showing mercy more strange than this thy strange apparent cruelty.
Stop! I pray thee, stop! My personal predilections are not on trial. The legal issue is whether my bond is...
And where thou now exact the penalty, which is a pound of this merchant's flesh, thou wilt not only lose the fortune.
My forfeiture is lost without a trial?
But touched with human gentleness and love.
Such passions are not a slave to the law any more than the law is a slave to passions. Your disposition offends the law.
And forgive. A moiety of the principle, glancing an eye of pity on his losses, and what have of late has so huddled on his back enough to press a royal merchant down.
If a Jew presses down a royal merchant, his recourse is the law.
And pluck commiseration of his state, thy cruelty.
And when a royal merchant presses down a Jew, his recourse...
And would pluck commiseration from brassy bosoms and rough hearts of flint, from devils never trained to offices of tender courtesy?
Reasoning upon courtesies is not in fashion to deliver justice, but offends the law. And to offend and judge are of distinct offices and of opposed natures.
Peace! Peace! We all expect a gentle answer, Jew.
Alas, I have but a legal answer. I have possessed this court of law of what I propose, to have, not in accordance with passions, but in accordance with Venetian law, the due and forfeit of my bond. If you deny it, will not the danger light upon your charter and your city's freedom?
We are Christians, not stubborn Turks and Tartars, devoid of human compassion, sensitivity, and...
Go to and then and consider these sensitivities.
He addresses the observers.
Some Christians there are love not a gaping pig, some that are mad if they behold a cat, and others, when the bagpipe sings, in the nose cannot contain their urine. There is no firm reason to be rendered why he cannot abide a gaping pig, why he, a harmless, necessary cat, Why he, a woolen bagpipe, must yield to such inevitable shame as to defend himself being offended.
Come, man, the full stop.
Your law is detached from affection, being the mistress of passion, and is thereby beyond the sway of such moods and fashions that Christians liked or loathe. Hence, your law grounds the prosperity of the state, since the trade and profit of the city consisteth of all nations, races, and faiths. I am a Jew demanding a weight of carrion flesh rather than receive 3,000 ducats. The court must determine if this is legal, not whether it is nice. Beyond doubt, my bond is forfeit, so I follow a losing suit against a royal Christian merchant. Is this court so emasculated by sentiment, ignorance, and bias that legal questions are beyond its conscience and wit to process and resolve?
The Duke looks blank, and the courtroom murmurs its disquiet.
This is no answer to excuse the current of thy cruelty.
Venetian law was not formulated to please thee.
Do all men kill the things they do not love?
Love is not the legal issue. Laws for the blood are beyond the wit of man to devise.
Every offense is not a hate at first.
Even so, I stand here to argue law, not to analyze niceties.
I pray you think you question with a Jew. You may as well go stand upon the beach and bid the main flood bait his usual height.
Gratiano sits.
You may as well question the wolf why he hath made the ewe bleat for the lamb. You may as well forbid the mountain pines to wag their high tops and make no noise when they are threatened with the gusts of heaven. You may as well do anything most hard as seek to soften that with which what's harder, his Jewish heart. Therefore, I do beseech you, make no more offers. Use no further means, but with all brief and plain convenience, let me have judgment and the Jew his will.
For thy 3,000 ducats. Here they are.
Bassanio puts down the money. Gratiano is deeply puzzled and looks to Bassanio accordingly. Bassanio looks away.
If every ducat in 6,000 ducats were in 6 parts, and every part a ducat, I would not draw them. I would have my bond.
The jailer is waved at by someone from off and exits.
How shalt thou hope for mercy, rendering none?
What judgment shall I dread, doing no wrong? You have among you many a purchased slave, which, like your asses and your dogs and mules, you use in abject and in slavish parts, because they were legally obtained. Shall I say to you, let them be free, marry them to your heirs. Why sweat they under burdens? Let their beds be made as soft as yours. Let their palates be seasoned with such viands. You will answer, the slaves were legally bought, so are ours. So do I answer you, the pound of flesh which I demand of him is legally bought. 'Tis mine, and I will have it. If you deny me, fie upon your law, for there is no force in the decrees of Venice. I stand for judgment.
The Duke is lost and can do nothing but stare at Antonio, who nods to him.
Answer. Shall I have
The
it?
Duke shuffles his papers, sighs, and speaks without looking at Shylock, while re-enter the jailer.
The court will adjourn while I...
If it please you, my lord, there stays without a messenger with letters from the court's advisor, Dr. Valerio of Padua.
Surprised, the Duke sets down his papers.
By all means, usher in the...
By what rule of court can another intervene at this late juncture?
The court has discretion.
That's unacceptable! Give me my judgment!
Consider calmly before you assume to wrest control of this place from me. Call the messenger.
Exit jailer.
Good cheer, Antonio.
You cannot be better employed at Bassanio than to live still and write mine epitaph.
Enter jailer with bearded Nerissa, who is apparelled as a judge's clerk.
Came you from Valerio of Padua?
Aye, my lord. Valerio greets your grace.
She gives a letter to the Duke. Shylock wets his knife on his shoe.
Why dost thou whet thy knife so earnestly?
To cut the forfeit from the bankrupt there.
Not on thy soul, but on thy soul, harsh Jew, thou makest thy knife keen. Oh, be thou damned, inexorable dog, and for thy life let justice be accused. Thou almost makest me waver in my faith to hold opinion with Pythagoras, that soul of animals infused themselves into the trunks of men. Thy cursed spirit governed a wolf who, hanged even from the gallows, did his fell so fleet, and whilst thou layest in thy unhallowed dam, infused itself in thee. For thy desires are wolfish, bloody, starved, and ravenous.
Till thou canst rail the seal from off my bond, thou but offenst thy lungs to speak so loud. I stand here for law.
This letter from Bellario doth commend a learned doctor to our court.
Too late an hour. The case has run its course, prompting your retirement for deliberation.
Silence! Where is the doctor?
He attendeth hard by to know your answer, whether you'll admit him.
I may, but first, the court shall hear Bellario's letter. Your grace shall understand my intention to advise on the case brought by Shylock the Jew, but alas, I am very sick. Yet in loving visitation with me has been one Balthasar, a learned doctor of Rome. I acquainted him with the cause in controversy between the Jew and Antonio, the merchant. We turned o'er many books together to the effect.
The Duke reads to himself.
Heir to the effect. Well, the rest is but tedious legal technicality. Go give this doctor courteous conduct to this place.
But your grace!
Peace! Thou hast urged justice, be assured thou shalt have justice.
The Duke sets down the letter. The courtroom fills with muttering until the jailer re-enters with bearded Portia as Balthazar. She's on crutches with her left foot in a plaster cast.
Come you from Padua and old Bellario?
I did, my lord.
Give me your hand. You are welcome. You are acquainted with the difference that holds this present question in the court?
I am informed thoroughly of the cause.
Antonio and Shylock stand forth.
Antonio and Shylock comply. Portia takes up Shylock's bond and inspects it, then glares at him.
Your name is Shylock.
Shylock is my name.
Portia waves Shylock's bond at him.
Of a strange nature is the suit you follow. Yet in such rule that the Venetian law cannot impugn you as you do proceed.
Shylock turns angrily on the Duke.
He knows the law. Do you hear? Do you?
Duke
Silence.
bangs his gavel.
Silence, or I will have you
The
removed.
Duke nods to Portia, who turns to Antonio.
Do you confess?
I cannot be impugned. Do you hear? I cannot. I cannot. I
Move him!
Shylock protests angrily, and the jailer wrestles him towards the exit.
By your leave, your grace. Might I suggest a fine?
Bring him back. Apologize.
Shylock struggles to get a grip of himself.
I beg your grace's pardon.
You are fined 1,000 ducats. Invoke a further fine, and it will be 2,000. Do you understand?
Reluctantly, Shylock nods, and the jailer releases him. Portia again returns to Antonio.
Do you confess the bond?
I do.
Portia turns back to Shylock, seemingly annoyed that he is trying her patience.
Then must the Jew be merciful.
With one eye on the Duke, Shylock responds meekly.
On what compulsion must I? Tell me that, good sir.
The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes.
She waits for Shylock's appropriate response, but he merely shrugs. She continues, really bugged by having to explain the obvious.
'Tis mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His scepter shows the force of temporal power, the attribute to awe and majesty wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above this sceptred sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute to God himself, and earthly power doth then show likest God when mercy seasons justice. Therefore, Jew, though justice be thy plea, consider this, that in the course of justice none of us should see salvation. We do pray for mercy, and that same prayer doth teach us to render the deeds of mercy.
Again, she waits for Shylock to reconsider and back down. He doesn't. She turns to the Duke.
I have spoke thus much to mitigate the justice of the Jew's plea, which, if thou follow, this strict court of Venice must needs give sentence gainst the merchant there. Is he not able to discharge the money?
Yes. On his behalf, 3,000 ducats has been tendered to the court.
Bassanio notices Graziano looking an unspoken question at him, as does Portia.
Someone has tendered for the merchant 3,000 ducats.
I, 3,000.
You tendered just 3,000.
Portia stares at Bassanio in disbelief. He steps towards her, takes the bond, scans it, and points to a section.
As expressed herein.
Well, what of that? 'Twere good to offer more for charity's sake.
He scans the bond again.
I cannot find that in the bond.
Portia is utterly stunned, but knows there's nothing more she can say about this now.
If that will not suffice, it must appear that malice bears down truth. I beseech you, rest once the law to your authority. Do a great right and curb this cruel devil of his will.
It must not be. There is no power in Venice can alter a decree established. 'Twill be recorded for a precedent, and many an error by the same example will rush into the state. It cannot be.
Shylock almost explodes with joy, but a glimpse of the stern-looking Duke dissuades him.
Let Daniel come to judgment, yea, Daniel.
Shylock, there's twice thy money offered.
Bassanio shakes his head vigorously.
An oath, an oath. I have sworn an oath in heaven. Shall I lay perjury upon my soul? No, not for Venice.
Why then this bond is forfeit, and lawfully by this the Jew may claim a pound of flesh, to be by him cut off nearest the merchant's heart. Be merciful, take the money, bid me tear the bond.
When it is paid according to the tenor, I pray you, proceed to judgment.
Most heartily. I do beseech the court to give the judgment.
Thus it is. You must prepare your bosom for his knife.
The entire courtroom voices appalled disbelief.
A Daniel, yea, a Daniel come to court.
For the intent and purpose of the law have full relation to the penalty, which here appeareth due upon the bond. Therefore, lay bare your bosom.
Some in the courtroom protest.
Aye, his breast. So says the bond, doth it not, noble judge? Nearest the heart, those are the very words.
Antonio lowers his head. Sally comforts him. Graziano throws his head back, moaning. The Duke signals the jailer over and whispers to him, "Exit, jailer."
Are there balances here to weigh the flesh?
Oh, I have them ready.
And you have by some surgeon one on your charge to stop his wounds?
Is it not in the bond?
He may bleed to death.
Our surgeons are expressed in the bond?
No, it is not so expressed, but what of that?
I cannot find it. 'Tis not in the bond.
Portia, Graziano, and others glare at Bassanio, who looks away.
You, merchant, have you anything to say?
But little. I am armed and well prepared. Give me your hand, Bassanio. Fare you well. Grieve not that I am fallen to this for you, for herein fortune shows herself more kind than is her custom. It is still her use to let the wretched man outlive his wealth, to view with hollow eye and wrinkled brow an age of poverty, from which lingering penance of such misery doth she cut me off. Repent, but that you shall lose your friend, and he repents not that he pays your debt. For if the Jew do cut but deep enough, I'll pay it instantly, with all my heart.
I pray thee pursue sentence.
A pound of that same merchant's flesh is thine. The court awards it, and the law doth give it.
Again, the courtroom groans.
Most rightful judge.
And you must cut this flesh from off his breast. The law allows it, and the court awards it.
Re-enter jailer with a priest, and the courtroom buzzes with concern.
I stay here on my bond and by my soul. I swear there is no power in the tongue of man to alter me.
Antonio turns to face the priest and is mortified by the priest chanting and signing the cross at him. Shylock sees Antonio backing away from the priest, so strides menacingly towards Antonio, gripping his knife. The courtroom voices even louder anxiety.
Come, prepare!
The courtroom explodes in a cacophony of protests, with everyone shouting their outrage. The riot intensifies, overwhelming the Duke until he tries to restore order by calling and banging his gavel.
Upon my
The
power,
riot abates a little.
I may
The
dismiss.
riot abates further.
I may dismiss this court.
Silence ensues.
Cut the flesh. The law allows it, and the court awards it.
Again, Shylock closes eagerly on Antonio.
But, Shylock, this bond doth give thee here no jot of blood.
Shylock stops dead in his tracks and looks aghast to Portia.
The words expressly are a pound of flesh. Take then thou thy pound of flesh. But in the cutting it, if thou dost shed one drop of Christian blood, thy lands and goods are by the laws of Venice confiscate unto the state of Venice.
O upright judge! Mark, Jew! O learned
The
judge!
courtroom is happily amazed, and Sophie shares excited delight with Antonio and Graziano.
Is that the law?
Thyself shall see the act.
Shylock glances to the Duke, who maintains his poker face.
O learned judge! Mark, Jew, a learned judge!
I take the offer then. Pay the bond and let the Christian go.
Soft. You shall have all justice. You shall have nothing but the penalty.
O Jew, an upright judge, a learned judge!
Therefore prepare thee to cut off the flesh. Shed thou no blood, nor cut thou less nor more than just a pound of flesh. If thou takes more or less than a just pound, be it but so much as makes it light or heavy in the substance or the division of the 20th part of one poor scruple. Nay, if the scale do turn but in the estimation of a hair, thou diest, and all thy goods are confiscate.
A second Daniel, a Jew!
Why did the Jew pause? Take thy forfeiture.
Give me my principal, let me go.
You have refused it in the open court, so shall have merely justice and your bond.
A Daniel, still I say, a second Daniel. I thank thee, Jew, for teaching me that word.
The entire court laughs as it relishes Shylock's humiliation.
Shall I not have barely my principal?
Thou shalt have nothing but the forfeiture to be so taken at thy peril, Jew.
Why then, the devil give him good of it. I'll stay no longer questioned.
The entire court boos and heckles Shylock as he takes up his things and prepares to leave. Bastiano rushes forward and retrieves his 3,000 ducats. The booing gets louder as Shylock exits, but then Portia signals the court into silence.
Tarry, Jew.
Shylock stops.
The law hath yet another hold on you. It is enacted in the laws of Venice, if it be proved against an alien that by direct or indirect attempts he seeks the life of any citizen, the party against the which he doth contrive shall seize 1/2 his goods. The other half comes to the privy coffer of the state. The offender's life lies in the mercy of the Duke only. Against all other voice in which predicament I say thou standst. For it appears by manifest proceeding that indirectly and directly too, thou hast contrived against the very life of the defendant, and thou hast incurred the danger formerly by me rehearsed. Down, therefore, and beg mercy of the Duke.
The courtroom erupts in joyous cheering and applauding. Then Graziano's voice rises above the clamor.
Beg that thou mayest have leave to hang thyself, and yet, thy wealth being forfeit to the state, thou hast not left the value of a cord. Therefore thou must be hanged at the state's charge.
The courtroom agrees.
I pardon thee thy life before thou ask it.
Jeering ripples around the courtroom.
For half thy wealth it is Antonio's.
The courtroom cheers.
The other half comes to the general state, which humbleness may drive unto a fine.
Again, the courtroom cheers. At a loss and bewildered, Shylock shakes his head and again prepares to leave. The Duke continues.
Finally, thou needs must learn the meaning of mercy. The Hebrew will turn Christian and grow kind.
This sparks the largest cheer of all.
Become a Christian. You pardon my life, yet take the prop that doth sustain my life?
Indeed, unless, Antonio, you can render some other mercy. A halter, gratis, nothing else, for God's sake!
So please my lord, the Duke and all the court, to quit the fine for 1/2 of his goods, I am content. So he will let me have the other half in use, to render it unto the gentleman that lately stole his daughter.
The courtroom approves.
He shall do this.
Further, that for this favor, that he do record a gift here in the court of all he possesses unto his son Lorenzo and his daughter.
He shall do this too, or else I do recant the pardon that I late pronounced here.
The courtroom approves.
But what of the prop that does sustain my life?
Antonio is unable to maintain eye contact with Shylock and turns half away.
Pagan ritual sustains your life, you say.
No, I say that...
Yet so often some sober brow must bless and approve a damning error in your creed with a text of fair ornament. Your prop is the chaff and ruin of the times, to be new varnished.
Father Abraham, what these Christians are, whose own hard feelings teaches them to scant a sacred nation.
Peace, I say! The Hebrew will turn Christian!
Shylock yells, flies to the Duke, but is restrained by Graziano, Bassiano, and others, not including Antonio. Shylock is beaten, and as he's bundled away, his Star of David is yanked off and hurled across the stage. Antonio recoils, and shocked, he picks up and examines the Star of David. Shortly, Graziano and the others re-enter, dragging Shylock, re-robed as a Christian, and throw him down. Portia approaches and uses the end of a crutch to turn Shylock's face towards her.
Art thou contented, Jew?
Entirely defeated, Shylock looks away. Again, Portia uses the end of a crutch to turn his face towards hers.
What dost thou say?
I am... content.
Clark, draw a deed of gift.
I pray you, I am not well. Send the deed after me, and I will sign it.
Get thee gone, but do it! In christening thou shalt have 2 godfathers. Had I been judge, thou shouldst have had 10 more, to bring thee to the gallows, not the font.
The courtroom fills with the mutterings as Shylock exits. Taking up the letter from Bellario, the Duke approaches Portia.
Sir, I entreat you home with me to dinner.
I humbly do desire your grace of pardon. I must away this night toward Padua, and it is meet I presently set forth.
Nodding, the Duke puts an arm around Portia's shoulders and guides her to one side where they can whisper together.
I confess to being in awe of this stratagem. Herein, but moreover, I am in wondrous admiration of its formidable execution.
He reads from the letter.
So by your leave, your grace, forbear a swift disposal of these simple matters, which would merely deliver Antonio to safety, whereas by deliberate and careful seduction the Jew will be induced into waiving his right to the money owed, into forfeiting his estates and his pagan beliefs. Even will his very life will be placed at your pleasure.
The Duke is in awe of Portia, who allows herself a modest smile. They return to the center of the court where the Duke addresses Antonio.
Antonio, gratify this gentleman, for in my mind you are much bound to him.
Exit Duke with priest as the rest of the court disperses.
Most worthy gentlemen, we have by your wisdom been this day acquitted of grievous penalties, in lieu whereof 3,000 ducats due unto the Jew we freely cope your courteous pains withal.
Bassanio winces.
He is well paid that is well satisfied. In delivering you I am satisfied, and therefore do account myself well paid. My mind was never yet more mercenary. I wish you well, and so I take my leave.
Dear sir, of force I must attempt you further. Take some remembrance of us, a tribute, not as a fee.
Oh, you press me far, and therefore I will yield.
She approaches Bassanio.
Give me your gloves, and I'll wear them for your sake.
He gives her his gloves and she sees his ring.
And for your love, I'll take this ring from you.
You want just this? Nothing else?
I will have just the ring.
Gladly. But you are pleased with all?
He gives her the ring.
I count myself fortunate that you cherish not this charming band.
The trinket weighs light against my heartfelt gratitude.
Who amongst us is not slave to matters of the heart? I do accept most thankfully.
As the others disperse and choked, Portia looks long and hard at the ring, then whispers to Nerissa.
Get your husband's ring also.
Nerissa hesitates and withers under Portia's glare. Nerissa nods and calls to Graziano as Portia exits.
Good sir,
Graziano returns as all others exit.
will you guide me to Shylock's house?
Graziano leads Nerissa downstage. She grabs his arm, checks no one is around, and throws off her disguise. He's completely taken aback. She covers his mouth with her hand, which she takes hold of and kisses. He looks to where Portia exited.
That was...
She wants your ring too.
Alarmed, he looks to his ring, becomes angry, and strides off after Portia. Nerissa grabs his arm again, and while he protests, she leads him hurriedly away. Blackout. Act 2, Scene 5. Venetian Street. Portia enters on crutches, still disguised, and Nerissa follows without her beard.
I commanded you to get Graziano's ring.
Portia yanks off her beard.
Sweet madam, it was not a thing in my power to bring to pass.
You are as lying a gossip that ever knapped ginger.
Gratiano would not be parted from it.
My house is troubled with a treacherous rat. I shall have a bane.
But I swear to you, madam, I was beaten by his rage.
His rage,
He was worse than a man.
his passion was thus stirred over a ring.
He was little better than a beast.
No more pity.
He spat on me and called me cur. He was a kind of devil. I feared I'd soon be gone to heaven.
That tortures me. Thus had your true-hearted husband revealed the very treason I had feared mingled in Bassanio's love, and the ring Bassanio has so slightly squandered, I had of my mother.
But by your leave, good madam, her ring rests entirely safe in your keeping.
What of it?
Portia produces the rings and looks at it.
No, he is damned by scant regard for all that I hold most dear.
You mean he broke faith with you?
Nodding and tearful, she turns away.
Mark me, Nerissa. I'll plague and I'll torture him for it, and be glad of it.
Blackout. Act 2, Scene 5. Portia's palace. Reveal Lorenzo and Jessica. Upstage is a table covered with plates.
In such a night as this, the sweet wind did gently kiss the trees, and they did make no noise. In such a night, Troilus methinks mounted the Trojan walls, and sighed his soul toward the Grecian tents, where Cressid lay that night.
No, in such a night did Thisbe fearfully o'ertrip the dew, and saw the lion's shadow ere himself, and ran dismayed away.
In such a night did Jessica steal away from the wealthy Jew, and with an unthrift love did run from him to her Lorenzo.
In such a night did Lorenzo swear he loved her well, stealing her soul with many vows of faith, and they are true.
In such a night did pretty Jessica, like a little shrew, slander Lorenzo, but he forgave her.
I would outnight you did nobody come.
Stephanie enters and approaches Lorenzo.
My mistress will before the break of day be here at Belmont. I pray you, is my master yet returned?
He is not, nor have we heard from him.
Enter Lancelot.
There is a post come from my master. He will be here ere morning.
Exit Stephanie, followed by Lancelot, who lavishes a lecherous eye over her.
Sweet soul, let's out, and they're expecting their coming.
Why should we go out?
No matter.
He looks out of a window.
How sweet the moonlight sleeps upon yonder bank.
Nothing makes me merry these days.
The reason is the hot condition of your blood, fit for stratagems, paternal treason, and bounteous spoils.
Scolded, Jessica strides towards Lorenzo.
No, in faith. The reason is...
Jessica is silenced by Nerissa wheeling in Portia, cane on her lap.
Dear lady, welcome home.
Are our husbands returned?
Madam, they are not yet, but there is come a messenger before to signify their...
A tucket sounds.
Your husbands are at hand.
Enter Bassanio, Antonio, Graziano, and their followers. Beaming delight, Portia opens her arms to Bassiano.
Let me give light, but let me not be light, for a light wife doth make a heavy husband, and never be Bassanio so for me.
They embrace and kiss, and so do Graziano and Nerissa.
Sweet Portia, give welcome to...
Portia takes Bassanio by the hand, and he realizes she's feeling for the ring on his finger. She smiles at him icily, and he panics.
Portia, forgive me,
To whom must I give welcome, Bassanio?
To our dear and acquitted friend, Antonio. But Portia...
Acquitted? Good sir, you are welcome, and I commend your good fortune.
That fortune is in part safe delivery from the evil Jew. Yet there is more.
Oh?
A messenger hath brought word that 3 of my argosies are richly come to harbor suddenly.
From what I hear, your deserving is no less.
Graziano notices tension between Lorenzo and Jessica.
How now, no Lorenzo?
Lorenzo smiles half-heartedly to Graziano. Portia looks directly to Jessica, who is unable to conceal her distress, turns away. Antonio addresses Lorenzo and Jessica.
Young lovers, be cheered. The Duke awarded you both from the rich Jew a special deed of gift after his death of all he does possessed of.
Good friend, you drop manna in the way of...
What was that? The sum of this manna?
The other half of your father's goods is rendered unto me.
What else?
That your father's life is spared.
Jessica senses there is more, so glares a challenge at Antonio, who wilts.
that Shylock presently become a Christian.
Shocked, Jessica takes measured, deliberate steps to Antonio.
And he has.
Was ever passion so confused? Thou scaped my father's knife, but who called for the faith riveted to your flesh to be cruelly ripped asunder?
Antonio is thrown into disarray.
Your father was content. He said so.
Said he no more.
Silence falls, and Jessica stares at Antonio.
He became unwell and begged to be excused.
Jessica nods knowingly, then scans the faces around her.
Shylock, the Jew, my father, a cutthroat dog, a merciless, impenetrable cur that never kept company with men. He taught you this villainy well.
She unfastens the crucifix from her neck.
Alack, he taught you too well.
She presses the cross into Antonio's hand.
For you have bettered the instruction.
Jessica searches Antonio's face for a response. He lets the crucifix fall to the floor and leaves, deeply troubled.
What a heinous sin. I was hitherto ashamed to be my father's child.
Weeping, Jessica scans the faces of the Christians who avoid her eye contact. She makes to exit but collides with someone entering, one of Portia's armed men. Smiling, he steps aside to let Jessica pass. Lorenzo looks at everyone and then runs off after Jessica. He too has to sidestep another of Portia's armed men entering.
2 women each gave their husbands rings,
She goes to Graziano, takes his hand and looks at his ring.
and both husbands swore never to part with
She
them.
smiles at Graziano and kisses his cheek.
Here stands one of the husbands,
She releases his hand, then turns to Bassanio.
and there stands the other.
3 other armed men enter from different places.
I dare be sworn for this other that he would not leave it, nor pluck it from his finger for the wealth that the world masters.
It were best to cut my left hand off. It's where I lost the ring defending it.
He holds up his ringless hand and shrugs as the armed men take a few steps toward him and Portia moves away.
If I could add a lie unto a fault, I would deny it. But you see, my finger hath no ring upon it. It is gone.
Even so void is your false heart of truth.
By my honor, I swear you do me wrong.
It is I who wrong you.
She glances to the armed men who edge a little closer to Bassanio.
If you did know how unwillingly I left the ring,
Unwillingly.
I swear it.
This oath is a shadow of the truth that lives too far behind the substance.
Hear me. It is your lord who speaks.
Portia is clearly unimpressed.
He who delivered Antonio begged the ring as a fee. He would accept naught but the ring.
Portia glances to Antonio and Graziano, who both look away.
By my soul, had you but seen how, with all the endeavor of a man, I protected your priceless gift, you would abate
Glances to our men.
the strength of your displeasure.
Had you known the virtue of the ring, or half the worthiness of she who first gave me the ring,
Portia, forgive me this enforced wrong.
enforce it.
I swear to thee, even by thine own fair eyes, wherein I see myself.
Mark you but that. In both my eyes he doubly sees himself. Swear by your double self, and there's an oath of credit.
Portia, but hear me.
Nay, but hear you how my blood speaks in my veins.
Pardon this fault, and by my soul I swear I never more will break an oath with you.
She stares at him blankly.
Portia,
Quaint lies, puny lies, 1,000 raw truths, a wild of nothing, a wild of...
Unnerved, Bassanio glances to the advancing armed men.
mercy, sweet Portia, mercy.
I stand here for justice.
Do but say how this is achieved, and I am pressed onto it.
It is not in your power. None can drive me from my envious plea of forfeiture.
Forfeiture?
You swore that when my ring parts from your finger, that...
Her look and silence prompts him to remember and repeat the oath.
When this ring parts from this finger, then parts life from hence.
Dissatisfied, she waits for more.
Oh, then be bold to say, Bassanio is dead.
The armed men crowd Bassanio.
Indeed, Bassanio. Dead. Quite dead.
Sweet Portia, can no prayers pierce thee?
No, none that thou hast wit enough to make.
Thinking of running, he glances desperately around.
You would confess not the treachery mingled in thy love. My prayers that at least you were true went unanswered. And now your prayers will go unanswered.
She stares at him coldly. He tries to run, but is immediately restrained by the armed men. Portia nods to them, and they subject Bassanio to a sustained and vicious beating. Portia approaches Bassanio lying semi-conscious on the floor and looks down to him.
Like my father, you were but the picture of a proper man. He enforced the 3 chests upon me with a deed of gift. Expressed in the condition was my unyielding delight to be stopped from choosing who I would or refusing who I disliked. Legally and cruelly trapped, I learned to rest content, to become stockish, hard, and full of rage, but soft. This comes to near the praising of myself. So, what of you, my husband? Do you rest yourself content?
He turns his battered face away, so she uses her cane to guide his gaze back to hers.
Are you content?
I am content. In faith. Entirely content.
You are an unpracticed schoolboy, but not bred so dull that you cannot learn.
Portia exits stage right while commanding her armed men.
Instruct him further as you bring him.
The armed men exit stage right, dragging Bassanio and kicking him as they go. Graziano and Nerissa look at each other, then hear Portia call.
Nerissa!
Graziano steps protectively between Nerissa and the sound of Portia's voice.
We must quit this place, or wear daggers with a much braver grace.
I am bid pack by a most courageous fiend.
Not so neither. Just an honest woman's son.
They kiss gently.
Nerissa!
Kind sir, I shall obey you in all fair commands.
As I shall you.
Smiling, they begin to exit stage left as Lancelot enters stage right.
Pardon me, but my lady calls.
Graziano gestures to the upstage table covered with plates.
As do your overlooked duties.
Lancelot looks to the plates and sighs. Graziano and Nerissa clasp hands and exit stage left hurriedly. Alone, Lancelot whistles, and after a moment enters Shylock stage right wearing a cross. Lancelot gestures to the table, so Shylock gathers plates with his back to the audience. Lancelot sits with his feet up and hands behind his head.
My conscience did counsel me to stay with the Jew, my master.
Lancelot literally laughs up his sleeve.
Sufferance is the badge of all our tribe.
Lancelot springs up.
The Jew is the very devil incarnation, and in my conscience...
Enter Antonio wearing a Star of David skull cap and shawl.
Jacob, from our holy Abraham.
Lancelot turns and shocked, puts the back of his hand to his mouth. Shylock turns, looks, and utterly amazed, drops his stack of plates.
Signor Bassanio! Signor Bassanio!
Running, Lancelot exits. Shylock moves slowly towards Antonio.
Jacob was indeed the third possessor, and when Laban and himself were compromised, they...
You knew. None so well as you. You knew.
Antonio nods.
But by God, the outward shows you were a Christian.
In these times, so like stairs of sand I put on seeming truth to flourish and bask in Christian love. I have been the tainted wether of the flock, the weakest of flesh, most meetest for death.
Shylock winces, shakes his head, and waves his hands energetically.
I've done thee and our sacred nation wrong. I would have thy love.
But I swore to have the due and forfeiture of my bond.
Wailing, he slides to his knees.
I would have had my bond.
Antonio replaces Shylock's cross with a Star of David and raises Shylock up.
If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh?
They move stage center and face the audience side by side.
And if you wrong us,
They look at each other, then at the audience. Triumphant, each with a raised, clenched fist, they shout.
shall we not revenge?
End.